All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Friday. Yay, it's Friday, June 17th, 2016. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Friday, everyone. It is a beautiful 74 degrees and sunny here in upstate New York. Looks like it is going to be an amazing, beautiful weekend of summer. So where do we leave off? Yesterday, we titled the show Technocratic Takeover as they manipulate the masses, and that's kind of where we ended up the story. We made a right turn from looking at gut bacteria and protogene, mad science gone mad, vaccines in your food, genetically modified carrots to treat Gaucher's disease, if you remember that one. But we made a right turn and started looking at some robots and artificial intelligence yesterday, and really how this is kind of all connecting together. You know, people point and laugh at me sometimes. You know how that is. Here, we're going to try something. And I've been squawking about this stuff for a very, very, very long time. Long before I ever started doing radio, but just from the perspective of something being very wrong. Hey, I connected. But every worst nightmare that we have ever had, it seems, in the world of science fiction is coming true. There is a guest that I highly recommend you try to catch Corbett this weekend.
Oh, here comes that.
Here comes that
echo. I don't know how to stop this. Hold on.
There we go. I suggest you catch Corbett this weekend if you can. I air him on Sundays at 2 after Ron's Game On, or he also has his shows up on his YouTube and his website, CorbettReport.com. But his guest this week is Jerry Day, and I was cutting the two pieces of his show together for this week, and I always catch the first couple minutes of the show and kind of listen. And Jerry Day, I'm not really sure what his history is. I'm going to have to look into him, but I got to tell you, this dude is right on the money. He's talking about everything that we've been talking about, how we're being usurped by science and technocracy and the mumbo jumbo that's too hard for everybody else to understand. It's what is allowing them to take control of everything we're doing. And it's going to allow them with technology to manipulate us down to the smallest level. Now, I'm going to see. Jerry has a video. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. All right. Jerry's got a video, and it's about 12 minutes. And I don't, honestly, this is a machine that never does what it's supposed to do. So can't guarantee that it's even going to work. But hey, it's Friday. See, got my volume at least. It's Friday, so let's give it a shot and see if this will play. This is Jerry Day. This is not. I did include this actually in the Corbett hour for Sunday, but this is not part of the interview. This was something else that Jerry did on his own that Corbett saw and then had him come on to do an interview. But it's called Our New Technocratic Lords. So, all right, I don't want to get an echo. So here, let's see if we can get this.
Science is being used as a means of social control. That means control of you. Both science and religion have been used throughout history as mechanisms of social control. The elite classes put forth the idea that they know something the common classes do not know, and therefore the common classes must heed the commands of the elites. The elites claim that they have heard God speak, or they have discovered some new mysterious science, and the common masses, for their own survival and protection, follow the direct, wise, and learned elites. Science, when applied politically, is just another faith. It is a faith controlled by central authorities who select portions of science to be applied socially with terms such as climate change. Anything referred to as science is supposed to be taken as true or real and not be. Of course, true science is the focus of unwavering skepticism and inquiry, constant challenge and reevaluation. Science, as a political tool, is no longer science. It is just behavioral control, power over others. When science is used politically, it is not research, inquiry, exploration, or progress, as science is supposed to be.
Oh, no.
Well, guess what? We lost the entire browser.
Awesome.
Hold on. Damn it.
Is being used as a means of social control. That means control of you. Both common classes do classes and the elites.
Oh, this ruins the show every time. All right,
hold on. Download.
Why do I even bother with stuff,
you know?
Here we go. I saved it as an audio-only file, just in case this happens. It's just gotta open.
Science is being used as a means of social control. That means control of you. Both science and religion have been used throughout history as mechanisms of social control. The elite classes put forth the idea that they know something the common classes do not know, and therefore the common classes must heed the commands of the elites. The elites claim that they have heard God speak or they have discovered some new mysterious science, and the common masses must, for their own survival and protection, follow the direction of the wise and learned elites. Science, when applied politically, is just another faith. It is a faith controlled by central authorities who select portions of science to be applied socially with terms such as climate change. Anything referred to as science is supposed to be taken as true or real and not to be questioned. Of course, true science is the practice of unwavering skepticism and inquiry, constant challenge and reevaluation. Science, as a political tool, is no longer science. It is just behavioral control, power over others.
Ding.
When science is used politically, it is not research, inquiry, exploration, or progress, as science is supposed to be. In political application, science is simply dogma and tyranny. Real science is always evolving, always open to question, and should never be used as a device for social control. The only thing that justifies control of humans is when those humans grant informed consent to be controlled, not as a voting mass, but one by one, individually, with power of revocation of that grant. Science is incidental to such political enterprise. You might say that real science is supposed to be the discovery of physical reality. In politics, science is turned into something very different. Science is redefined to mean group truth, imposed reality, inflexible absolutist doctrine, something you must agree with and behave accordingly or suffer reprisal at the hands of the state. There will never be any such thing as group truth. A group is nothing but a bunch of individuals with individual viewpoints. Individually, we believe whatever we want, whenever we want. If I cheer or boo along with the crowd, that is a temporary and limited behavioral choice, not the composite of my existence. Our unique individuality never goes away. Of course, we can play different roles. The important question is not what roles we play, but who is choosing our roles for us. Do we have a right, for instance, to believe it is good luck to wear green shoelaces? Of course we do. We have that right even if science says we're wrong. Or if the politician says there is no evidence that green shoelaces are good luck. Or if the media tells us that scientifically only red shoelaces are good luck. It's not a question of science. It's a question of who tells you what shoelaces to wear and whether they use force when they tell you. It's extremely difficult to exploit, enslave, tax, and control people who are determined to control their own lives, who put a value on self-determination. Everyone has at least some desire to control their own lives. The high art of elitism is to convert that desire into conformity with the collective. Elites, those people who run the human farm, are always looking for mechanisms of control. They know that when we are told that something is based on science, we tend to accept it. It is therefore a simple matter to select or concoct science that suits their agendas and tell us we have no choice but to worship that science and to serve the prescribed outcome. Those who bow to the science God will be rewarded. Those who resist will be ridiculed and shamed. If we are going to shame people for not believing in science, we must shame everyone who holds a religious faith. We must shame every investor who takes a risk on his own hunches. We must shame a young woman who believes she can go where no woman has gone. We will be told that our brilliant leaders, with their exclusive mastery of science, will lead us to our proper destiny.
Dang.
Over human faith and nature has proven that promise to be a lie. For centuries, religion was deployed as a mechanism of social control. People were burned at the stake when they fell out of favor with their psychopathic religious dictators. Religion was used to create social order before governments even existed. But people now know too much to be told by priests what God wants them to do. Americans now feel free to select and practice religion or secularism their own way as a civic right. The elite, those who hold and control centralized power, need an exclusive ideology which they can impose upon others and which others will feel they have no choice but to accept. By claiming scientific superiority, elites have seized their high ground for social control. Of course, those elites have no interest in truth, and they will only give the word science a bad name over time. But science is now being positioned as the natural means of social control. If some scientific principle undermines the elite's political agendas, that scientific principle will not be reported. And you will have no idea it exists unless you go out and look for it. If science could not be corrupted, Monsanto would not exist. Nuclear weapons would never have been used against civilian populations. Pharmaceutical products would be affordable and cause no side effects. Most wars would not have occurred. Cancer would be cured consistently with little cost and little fanfare. Economics and finance would be known and controlled by every individual, not by central elites. Everyone uses science and technology to better their lives if and when we gain access to it. But of course, much of science and technology is controlled by people who may not have social ethics as their primary objective.
Dang.
The military is desperate for scientific advantage. Corporate executives are desperate for scientific advantage. Many others, including social engineers, are desperate for scientific advantage. So science is hoarded, suppressed, and controlled whenever possible by whoever can do it. The science and technology that you and I understand and use is certainly a small fraction of the science and technology held and used by the elites and their servile agencies and institutions. Most of us are in that sense very ignorant. How can we know something that is hidden from us? Our ignorance is a tremendous advantage for anyone who wishes to control us. If we are not ignorant, they will speak to us in ways that make us feel ignorant. Because as long as we are subservient, it doesn't really matter if we're ignorant or not. In politics, it's not the science or the intelligence or the religion that really matters. It's the compliance. It's the willingness of people to follow the elite's narratives. This raises the question, do people who we judge as ignorant have a right to determine their own lives? Or is some class of ignorant people destined to be handled and controlled by those who consider themselves more intelligent? Who will judge people's intelligence? Who will determine who will be cast into those smart and stupid classes? Will that be fair or biased? Will some knowledge be seen as intelligence and other knowledge be seen as ignorance? When they organize and arrange society according to intelligence, what will those intelligent people do to those ignorant people? Are those intelligent people intelligent and compassionate enough to determine what is best for those ignorant people? Or would those intelligent people simply use that power to gain personal advantages over those ignorant people, as they have always done throughout history? Or should we all be respected for our rights and humanity and not judged by our perceived intelligence? Should intelligent people not share their gifts of knowledge instead of using their knowledge to dominate, control, and exploit others? Yes, we can all benefit from knowledge, but when knowledge is kept from us and used to control us, we are slaves. Claims of superior knowledge that are used to control others is not science. It is just political manipulation and mass marketing. True science in the hands of everyone is powerful and useful. Science that is exclusively in the hands of elites, central authorities, and power brokers is just intellectual oppression and political gamesmanship. The people who want to use science to control us are called technocrats. Just as a priest in 200 BC would tell the peasants that he has spoken to God, and God said to him that peasants should give their money to priests, technocrats will tell us they know science, and science says we must obey and serve the technocrats. The technocrats know best, and we're not capable of running our own lives because we don't have all the science they do. They tell us that by paying taxes, we will make the climate stop changing, and we will believe them because they have science and we don't. Or we think we must believe the science as they present it. It's control. By allowing technocrats to dictate our behavior, we will save the planet or cure cancer or conquer space or spread democracy. We will be promised wonderful things if we obey the technocrats. We dare not question, we dare not control our own lives. We must do as technocrats command, and we must never imagine that any technocrat would be selfish, greedy, or corrupt. There are a few of us who know that our rights and freedoms must never be conditional on our intelligence, our education, or our choices of culture and lifestyle. Some of us know that we must maintain our own dignity and believe in our own self-worth no matter what our circumstances. And we must not let ourselves be intimidated by sanctimonious academics and presumptive overlords. We may call ourselves libertarians, anarchists, sovereigns, or simply Americans. Sure, knowledge is a wonderful thing, and hopefully we can all climb the ladder of knowledge. Hopefully we can all conquer any suffering that is caused by ignorance. But knowledge is not a measure of human worth, dignity, freedom, or the exercise of personal independence. No matter how superior a man is in knowledge, he is never superior in humanity or rights. And he is never entitled by his IQ, his education, his ambitions, his wealth, or his bloodline to take control over other people's lives. But people who are wealthy and privileged forget this. They find some of us are easily and willingly controlled. Then they want more and more. And now we find that we cannot rest and expect to exercise our rights, our freedoms, and to protect our property. At this late stage, we must not just act to recapture, defend, and protect those rights for ourselves. We must fight.
And that's it. Hold on one second. So that's Jerry Day. First time, like I said, that I run across him was this week in cutting Corbett's interview that he had with him. But I got to tell you, Jerry is right on the money. Thank you, Dal. Yeah, Dal posted in the chat room. I'll put Corbett's interview in the notes of the show after this is over. But Jerry pretty much lays out exactly what we've been saying. I mean, it is all about science now being in control. The technocrats are telling us what we should be believing, and it's all in the name of climate change. And that's how they are taking control down to the cellular level of biology, and biology is going to be usurped here with this grand plan. Now, how is it that the rich scientists, which actually they're not rich, the rich billionaires that are financing the scientists, and that's the one thing that Jerry talks about in his interview is how exactly what we've been saying, that we have the federal government sprinkling venture funding as well as the rich tech billionaires at all these universities and getting our kids to do the work for us to be able to then enslave us in the future. They are figuring out every little nook and cranny within the human body and within nature and biology, not to cure you. Of course, that's how they're selling it. That's how they're getting informed, quote unquote, informed consent, informed by people who don't understand science, who don't understand that they should be even questioning what we're being told, because we're given a lot of bullshit half the time. But, the promise of science, that glowing light, the former religion that is now the new religion of the 21st century, to live forever. We'll be able to download Nana at Christmas time. You'll be able to be uploaded into the cloud. Think about it. Think about Kurzweil and his insanity about being able to live forever. Being able to upload and download yourself into different physical bodies and cure death as a disease. I mean, that is what they are selling, is immortality. But the immortality in the end isn't for the plebes like us. The immortality in the end is for the rich billionaires who are going to be controlling everything. You and me and Nana and little Susie and Johnny, we're just the guinea pigs that help them get there. In the meantime, they're going to tell us it's all for our own good. Socialized medicine and Obamacare and precision health care and the microbiome project and the brain project and all this other great stuff is being done in the name of the new way of doing things. This is going to make us more efficient, and this is going to save the planet. And we'll be able to save you too, because we have all these newfangled cures. He even mentioned a cure for cancer. I said that from the very beginning. That is what they're going to use, is that dangling carrot to get the unknowing to step right up and think they're giving their consent. Scientists have performed the very first trials, yes, it's really happening, of the universal cancer vaccine. And remember, we talked last week about 3 or 4 different stories that have come out about the shape-shifting immune system. There's even a big story in the New York Times about it. It was all using synthetic DNA and physically going in and doing genetic therapy, is what they were calling it, on the host who received that synthetic vaccine. Well, this comes on the heels of that. Scientists, because that was a vaccine for anything. It was a vaccine to cure you no matter what you had. And that's still in research and development. But apparently this one has already completed its first trials. Scientists took a very big positive step towards developing what could be the very first universal cancer vaccine. The results from early trials in humans, so they have tried this on humans, people, along, of course, with research in mice, have just been published. And they suggest that this new technique could be used to activate patients' immune systems against any type of tumor, no matter where it is in the body. Now, here I'm going to tell you something. Mr. Feinauer in 5th grade taught us one thing that I've never forgotten in my whole life, and that is there is no free lunch. But the other thing that he taught us, actually, he taught me 3 things that I still remember to this day. The second thing that he taught us, not only was there no free lunch, but caveat emptor, buyer beware. Don't trust the bastards is basically what that means. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Don't be a little mousy running for the peanut butter in the trap, because that's exactly what they're doing right now. So they're saying that they can activate patients' immune systems against any type of tumor, no matter where it is in the body. And unlike the vaccines that we are currently familiar with, that just put a little bit of some sort of material that is foreign to you. And I'm not even talking about basic vaccines now, because vaccines aren't basic anymore, but old school vaccines. And maybe they never even were old school, honestly. Back in the 60s and the 70s, from what we find out now, as the bio warfare program in the United States went underground. Remember Nixon, when he inked that agreement to, get the United States off of developing chemical and biological warfare weapons, the one thing he did say is that we were going to maintain a defensive posture with the production of vaccines. But in the old school way of immunology, they would just inject you with a little tiny bit of something that then your immune system would recognize and build defenses against. Well, it's not like that anymore. And then they started adding adjuvants, which would irritate the immune system and cause a more marked response to extend immunity, let's say, in a 3-year rabies vaccine, for example, versus a 1-year. But now they're doing all kinds of strange things, like making virus-like particles, whether it be synthetic or expressed out of some genetically modified plant like we've been looking at over the last week or so. And now we've even taken it a step further. Now we're putting in synthetic DNA that can shapeshift and go in and physically change the bodies of the host that have been injected. It says, unlike the vaccines that we are familiar with, this potential vaccine would be given to patients, of course, the desperate, the ones already who have cancer, rather than those at risk of getting it. Phew, at least for now, no prophylaxis. It basically works by shooting tiny darts containing pieces of RNA extracted from the patient's cancer cells at the body's own immune system, convincing them to launch an all-out attack on any tumors that they come across. Now, I really was kind of intrigued by what they are doing with this vaccine, where somehow, and they don't say how, but they get a hold of some of the patient's cancer cells, and then they reintroduce them into the body to be able to activate the immune system. But don't you think that by reintroducing cancer cells, do you think that's a very good idea? Just like doing surgery. Once you do surgery and you cut open a tumor, or you let the air get inside and the tumors become exposed, that typically is not a good thing for the person who has the disease. A lot of times that can accelerate growth as well. It says just by changing the DNA inside of those darts, the team can, in theory, mobilize the immune system against any kind of cancer. Such vaccines are fast and inexpensive to produce, and virtually any tumor antigen can be encoded by RNA, the team says, led by researchers at Johannes Gutenberg University of Mainz in Germany. Thus, the nanoparticulate RNA immunotherapy approach introduced here may be regarded as a universally applicable novel vaccine class for cancer immunotherapy. Immunotherapy, which involves using the patient's own immune system to attack cancer, isn't in itself new. Well, I'm pretty sure that's how they actually worked on allergy inoculation as well. They would literally inject you with what you were allergic to, but just in small, tiny doses to enable then the body to recognize it and tag it as a foreign entity so then it could mount its own attack. Immunotherapy, which involves using the patient's own immune system to attack cancer, isn't in itself new. Researchers are already using it against different types of cancers with great results, yes. But until now, scientists have mostly done this by genetically engineering special cancer-targeting immune systems in the lab. Ding, ding. See, that's the stuff I was reading about. And then injecting those back into the patient, which, of course, is time-consuming and expensive. Not to mention, kind of mad science gone maddie. The difference with this technique is that the vaccine is made in the lab and it introduces the cancer DNA into the immune cells within the body, which is a lot less invasive. It also means that the vaccine can be tweaked to hunt a range of cancer types. So why isn't the immune system naturally taking out these cancer types? Well, one reason is that the cancer cells are similar in many ways to normal cells, and the immune system avoids attacking itself unless, of course, and I'm going to add this, you have an autoimmune disease, and that autoimmune disease is a lot of times caused by this whole cascade of events that all starts with damaging your gut bacteria and your balance within your body. Trust me, I lived that whole situation, and trying to get that balance back is not an easy thing to do. And once you have one autoimmune disease, then you are at risk of a host of many others. And, I would be a little concerned here. As they say, cancer is normal, well, is similar to normal cells in that it prevents the immune system to avoid attacking itself. But if they start putting in some of these engineered DNA, RNA into your body, what are they going to do if the immune system all of a sudden goes, oh, Clyde, we got an invader, poop, 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 kind of like what happened to me with that Flavor Saver tomato. I don't know. I honestly think if we don't step up for these. Again, one of the things that Jerry, I don't remember his last name, Jerry Day, was talking about in the interview with Corbett was the fact that once we get the stuff into us, we now have become part of the control grid. And we were reading yesterday, the founder of Android operating system was discussing how in the future they're going to have control over the entire Internet of Things. And remember, once this technology gets into us, we become a node on that Internet of Things. And it will be down to a DNA level. They will be able to read, bag, and tag absolutely everything. Biosensors, mini in the bloodstream. And this is just the very beginning. And that's what we forget. This is like, way out there, science fiction science to us still, because this stuff is coming so fast at us on a daily basis. But we haven't seen anything yet. This is just sticking your toe into the pond. Anyway, I don't know if I really want to get into dendritic cells and all this other crap. It's Friday, man. We want to take this a little bit easy. So let's take a look at this. So we're talking about universal cancer vaccines, being able to take a little bit of cancer out and make something out of it. Here, we'll look at this. And this is what the early research by the team has demonstrated in mice. Once injected with this vaccine, our immune system was able to fight aggressively growing tumors, the research found. Of course, many results in mice don't translate to humans, so we can't get too excited just yet. The team has also now trialed a version of this vaccine in 3 patients with melanoma. And the point of the trial was only to test whether or not the vaccine was safe for use in humans, not whether or not it was effective. Like, who would step up for this? So, obviously, they weren't looking for a cure if they weren't doing a test to see whether or not it was effective, just whether or not this person was going to drop dead. Who would step up for that? Oh, wait, one of those million stupid people that they've asked to become part of the Precision Medicine Initiative cohort program, I would imagine. Like, what? Why would you get injected by some sort of experimental vaccine? Not to see if it works, just to see whether or not you're going to drop dead. It just makes no sense to me. But it says, thank goodness, the results were promising. Side effects were limited to flu-like symptoms, which is better than most chemotherapy treatments. The team is now waiting 12 months for follow-up results from the safety trial, see if they drop dead the next 12 months. And if all goes well, we are then going to start a larger clinical trial after that to see if the vaccine really works. And I'm going to make you a bet that it's probably going to be in some country like South Africa somewhere. Just like did you see the new human trials en masse of the new HIV vaccines happening in South Africa? And right where they did the Ebola stuff as well. By combining laboratory-based studies with results from an early phase clinical trial, this research shows that a new type of treatment vaccine could be used to treat patients with melanoma by boosting the effects of their immune system. But because the vaccine was only tested in 3 patients, much larger clinical trials are needed to confirm that it works and it is safe. And while more research will determine if it can be used in other types of cancer. And although it's still in the very early days, we have another reason to feel hopeful about the future of cancer treatment. And that is a very good thing. Yes. I have hiccups. I got so excited. Whether or not it's a very good thing, step right up for your experimental vaccine. Be one who will be remembered throughout history of the human race as someone who was brave and gave it up for all. Gave it up to make the world a better place, becoming a guinea pig for this technocratic science takeover that's happening. I don't think so. And listen, we talked about genetically engineering food and all the different food crops with a PH food that can be used in pharmacologicals with a PH, pharma, in biofarming. And one of them that we read about, I think it was yesterday, not the day before, was how useful corn is. Because we know so much about corn. We know how to manipulate corn. How great corn is to put drugs into. And how great it works on the body. And it gets into the mucosal lining. To be able to pass and cross that blood barrier. There's a story that came out. This is out of Wichita, Kansas. Wichita's NPR station, KMUW 89.1. A new genetically engineered corn variety by one of the world's largest seed companies won't be undergoing the same review by regulators as other GMO crops. And we'd already seen this in mushrooms. We did a story, a couple weeks ago about the new CRISPR mushrooms. And the thing about using CRISPR is that they are able to go in and splice and dice and make the food product however they want to manipulate it, but it doesn't need to undergo any additional testing. It doesn't need any labeling as a GMO. It can go completely under the radar now, and no one will even know it. And of course, the research community is very happy with this news. This long-awaited decision by the USDA will not regulate genetically modified mushrooms used and created with the gene editing tool CRISPR-Cas9. This long-awaited decision means that mushrooms can be cultivated and sold without passing through any of the agency's regulatory process. Now, this is also what they're looking to do with this 21st Century Cures Act, of course, using similar mad science technologies on humans and medication and treatments. It says this makes mushrooms the first CRISPR edited organisms to receive a green light from the U.S. government. And don't think it's going to be the last, because we're going to be next after corn. The research community, of course, was very happy with this news. They didn't have to go through any regulatory agencies whatsoever, says Xiaxia Gao, a plant biologist at the Chinese Academy for Sciences Institute of Genetics and Developmental Biology in Beijing. He says, I am confident we will see more gene-edited crops falling outside of regulatory authority. Now, that should make you feel real warm and fuzzy. Outside of regulatory authority, not that ever helped us in the first place, but we got some scientists now evilly rubbing his hands together at the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Genetics and Developmental Biology in Beijing. That should really make you worry. I would have to say. Yin and Yang a plant pathologist at Pennsylvania State University, which is exactly where they're working with the genetically modified tobacco to be producing antigens, mind you. Yingong Yang, a plant pathologist at Pennsylvania State University in University Park, engineered the common white button mushroom to resist browning, and that's what it's in the name of. That's how we got those new genetically modified apples on the market, too. It was because Johnny would cry when his apples were brown when he opened the baggie and he was at lunch at school. So now we don't have to worry about that anymore. Well, guess what? For those of you who are picky about your food and don't like brown mushrooms, you can have CRISPR mushrooms now and you'll never know it. The effect is achieved by targeting the family of genes that encodes polyphenol oxidase, which is an enzyme that causes browning. And by deleting just a few of these base pairs of genes in the mushroom's genome, they have now reduced this enzyme's activity by 30%. And don't think that they're not doing this on plants in preparation for trying it on mammals and then soon to be you and me is some unregulated science procedure. Mushrooms are about one of 30, count them 30. Yes, that's 3 sets of 2 pairs of hands. For those of you that need help visualizing, 30 genetically modified organisms that now sidestep the USDA regulatory system in the past 5 years. So again, surprise, there's 30 foodstuffs out there that have sidestepped all regulation, that have been genetically modified by some crazy mad science, something called CRISPR or whatever, that we're consuming and we don't know what they are. In each case, though, the agency's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, known as APHIS, has said that the organisms, of course mostly plants, do not qualify as something that the agency must regulate at all. But once the crop passed the USDA reviews, they may still undergo a voluntary review by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Of course, we know how many of these mad science organizations step right up and want to voluntarily be reviewed. It's not going to happen, people. And they're all protected now. They are all protected under laws such as the Monsanto Protection Act. That, plausible deniability. How are you ever going to prove that this is what caused your cancer 25 years from now, or the arm to grow out of the middle of your forehead? Because you're not. Several of the plants that bypassed the USDA were made using gene editing techniques such as zinc finger nuclease and transcription activator-like effector nuclease, which are the ZFN and the TALEN systems. But until now, it was not clear whether the USDA would give the same pass, like rubber stamp it, remember, revolving door, to organisms engineered with science's hottest new tool called CRISPR-Cas9. And that is the hottest new tool, not just for plants, but for people as well. We saw they just gave the green light to CRISPR on a human in the UK. I don't remember what the name of that disease was, but we did that story a few days ago where it was some disease that happens at birth. The baby typically only lives to be about a year old. And so they were doing live gene editing on a human to see if it worked, and it seems to be. And by the way, I got a story coming up here because guess what? They are ready now for the first test in the USA to CRISPR a human. This is not a good thing, people. This is happening faster than anyone can even understand. And I think that is intentional because we can only absorb so much. Even those of us that pay attention, we can only absorb so much. I mean, I am already at a complete saturation point, and I'm one of those people that can go 60 hours a week, without blinking an eye. And if I'm at the point where I'm having a lot of trouble keeping up because it's just coming so fast and insane, I would really worry about those million people that have inked on with the Precision Medicine Cohort Initiative program to step right up and be a guinea pig for science, because they don't have any idea what they are putting themselves in the way of. Just like that universal cancer vaccine, they tried it on humans, but they weren't trying it to see if it cured anything. They just tried it to see if you were going to drop dead once they injected it into you. What would be the incentive for doing that? Because you'd feel special, Johnny? Anyway, the United States, of course, is revamping its rules for regulating GMOs, which collectively are known as the Coordinated Framework for Regulation of Biotechnology. And to that end, the U.S. National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine have convened a committee that is charged with predicting what advances will be made in biotechnology over the next 5 to 10 years. Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. And it will hold its first meeting, and they already did, on April 18th of 2016. You know, we really should see if we can find some information on that meeting, because I missed that one. In the meantime, Yang is mulling over whether or not to start a company. Yes, he's the guy out of the University of Pennsylvania. And we've talked about this. Sprinkle money from federal agencies, and then you spin out yourself a little brand new IPO with this mad science gone mad and make bazillions of dollars. I will bet you Yang's going to become one of the privileged few here soon. Yang is mulling over whether to start a company to commercialize his modified mushroom. Fruits and vegetables that resist browning are valuable to little Johnny and mommies just the same, who aren't reading the literature, because they keep their color longer when sliced, which lengthens its shelf life. And in the past 18 months, here we go, biotech companies have commercialized genetically engineered non-browning apples and potatoes. And yes, they have. And they're not labeled, people. So you need to pay attention. The only way you will be assured, at least partially assured, is to buy something that has the non-GMO label on it. So let's take another step forward into the CRISPR technology. This was now from just a few days after that one. I think this was April 14th of 2016 about the mushrooms. Well, on April 27th, so this is after that biotech meeting, we now have a new one hitting the market. DuPont. Yes, now DuPont is in the game. DuPont, the same one that makes chemicals. DuPont, weren't they the ones that made Teflon? I believe they are. Yes, DuPont. That DuPont is making CRISPR corn. Makes you want to step right up and eat some of that. Now, any of you who have half a brain know, stay away from corn. Again, unless it says it's organic. But be aware, there's still a minimal amount of genetic modification, pollen or seeds or whatever, that are allowed, regardless of what the label says. It's a very small amount, but we read about that Protogene incident that happened back in the early 2000s, where there were crops fully contaminated, where they had to destroy hundreds of acres of corn and soybeans in two separate incidences. I'd be afraid. I'd be very afraid. This new genetically engineered corn variety, developed by one of the world's largest seed companies, and we don't mention chemical companies, won't undergo the same regulations as other GMO crops. Researchers at DuPont, yes, DuPont Pioneer, use a new technology called CRISPR-Cas9 to edit the genes of a waxy corn, which is used in processed foods. Yes. See, it's easy to hide everything in processed foods. And remember, high fructose corn syrup, which is in the majority of food that's out there that's processed as well as used as a sweetening agent, not only causes the same reaction in the brain with dopamine, that addictive chemical, as cocaine and sex and gaming and all the other things, gambling, that are unhealthy for you, but high fructose corn syrup is also made of corn. It's also got some sort of pesticides in it a lot of times, especially if it's some sort of Monsanto free creation, and it kills gut bacteria. It starts the cascade to autoimmune disease as well as diabetes and a lot of other things. So beware of high fructose corn syrup, and I think they even gave it a new name. You might want to look that one up. I don't remember what the new name was. But this now CRISPR-Cas9 waxy corn is used in processed foods and adhesives by DuPont. The USDA says that the variety is exempt. Totally exempt, yep, from normal regulation. Rubber stamp it. So DuPont must have gotten themselves a new lobbyist. Essentially because the technology edits the corn's own genome. Yes, and doesn't add anything to it. So we just snip, 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 zip, zip, zipped it back up, took things out, mixed and matched them, but we didn't add anything in. So it technically, wink, is not genetically modified. I mean, talk about a used car salesman way of thinking. It's complete insanity. Our view is that the plant variety is developed through the latest breeding methods, which in this case happens to be 21st century medicine, and shouldn't be differentially regulated as if they are similarly or indistinguishable from varieties that could have been produced earlier through regular breeding methods. DuPont Pioneer expects the corn to be available to farmers within the next 5 years. So not out there yet, but it's coming. You gotta love, when you start really digging in, seeing that chemical companies that make like exfoliation agents and, I don't know, stuff used in war, pesticides, things that blow up bug stomachs, are also making food with the pH, and drugs with a pH, using food with a pH. Pretty frightening. So here, this is the greatest one. I saw this morning. June 16th, so we went April, May, June, 2 months later, 2 months after the first CRISPR mushroom. 3 months, April, May, June, 2 months. And then 2 months after the first CRISPR corn, we now have the first human test of CRISPR is now proposed. 1 month, by the way, after Harvard had that secret meeting about creating a synthetic human genome. MIT Technology Review, June 16, 2016. This was just yesterday. This was released. Doctors at where? Oh, the University of Pennsylvania. Again, the same place that's making the genetically modified tobacco that's creating pharma drugs. The same university that is working on the CRISPR mushroom. The same university that has come up time and time again, involved in 21st century cures, is now proposing the first human test of CRISPR. A federal safety board next week will consider the first human use of the gene editing technology CRISPR, according to the National Institutes of Health. The proposed treatment is an immune therapy in which patients' own blood cells will be removed and genetically altered using the technology, which is a type of molecular scissors able to precisely cut DNA. Ding, CRISPR. The cancer treatment, yes, of course it's going to be a cure for cancer. We knew it. In the development at the University of Pennsylvania is designed to target melanoma, and sarcomas, according to the National Institute of Health. And what's even more interesting about the sarcomas, I've talked about my cat who ended up with that sarcoma back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a vaccine-induced sarcoma using an adjuvanted 3-year rabies vaccine. His leg that had to be amputated became a part of that study. His doctor was a graduate of Cornell and was working on some of the Cornell research. But if you actually go to the wiki on vaccine-induced sarcomas that talk about the whole thing I went through with my cat, because they knew about this for a long time, that it was causing that in animals, that aluminum adjuvant was causing that sarcoma. Who was the head? What institution was the head of research? Oh, the University of Pennsylvania. Yes. I think they've been a lizard's pit for a really long time. I just didn't know it yet. CRISPR technology was invented less than 4 years ago, but it has rushed, yes, unthinkingly running toward the cliff like lemmings. I don't think lemmings but they could be genetically modified lemmings with sheep paws. They have been rushing toward clinical application, and a Cambridge company called Adidas Medicine, yes, that was the one that Jennifer Dauda was a part of, previously said that it intended to begin trialing in 2017 using CRISPR to treat a very rare eye disease. But hey, we're going to jump the gun on that one because we have more desperate people who are ready to step up as part of this cohort program. This new proposal to use CRISPR to edit human immune cells would happen sooner than that. And the University of Pennsylvania did not respond immediately to requests for comments. And the timing of the study could not be determined. But that same university helped pioneer a form of cancer therapy in which a person's own blood cells are removed and genetically modified to attack the cancer and reinfused back into the bloodstream. And guess what? I think that was that shape-shifting cancer immune vaccine we just read about at the beginning of the show. So it came out of the same place. The group reviewing the proposal, which is called the Recombatant DNA Advisory Committee, didn't know we had one of those, was established to weigh the risks of studies involving gene therapies and also to investigate reports of death and side effects. Well, phew, at least someone's looking at that. The modified T cells can be dangerous because they bypass the usual checks and balances that keep the immune system from attacking a person's own tissues. And that's what I was saying. Like, what if this went awry and became a full out and out assault on your body? That would be like autoimmune disease on steroids, where the body would be eating itself. Of course, while this application of new gene editing technologies has great potential to improve human health, it is not without concerns. And we talked about this a long time ago. When they first invented CRISPR, it was called a death process because it unzipped genes before they figured out how to re-zip them up. All right, guys, well, blood cells edited with this and other methods have been tried in humans to treat conditions like HIV and leukemia. But this is far easier to use, so step right up and be a cohort. Right. Everybody, make sure you have an awesome Friday and weekend. Come back. There's lots of brand new radio. Lonnie Clark is live next. And I will catch up with you on Monday. Everybody, take care.